Well, if you love quirky and unusual history, WDSE's new documentary series is for you. Minnesota Historia is our new digital-first series, which drops its first episode next week. Here to tell us more is Mike Scholtz, the producer, writer, and editor of Minnesota Historia, and Hailey Eidenschink is a museum professional and host of the series. Thank you both for being here tonight. Appreciate it very much. So, Mike, what is Minnesota Historia all about?
Well, you did a great job introducing this. It's really telling some of those quirky and unusual, often untold stories from Minnesota history. And I think a great way to talk about it is to give examples of some of the programs that we're going to be doing. We're going to be talking about the legend of St. Urho. We're going to be talking about the root beer lady. We're going to be talking about some top 5 superior shipwrecks that aren't the Edmund Fitzgerald. So lots of untold nuggets.
Hailey, is Minnesota particularly quirky in its history, or
I think
could any region do that?
Well, I think any region could, but Minnesota kind of leans into like the quirky, fun stuff. I think we think of ourselves as like kind of weird, so we dig into the weird stuff a little bit more.
Mike, where do all these ideas come from? Do the two of you come up with this, or is it public help?
Mostly Mike. He bounces stuff off of me.
I have a thick file of weird stories, and I just keep track of interesting, historical anecdotes that I hear, and then I try to develop them into documentaries whenever I can.
Mm-hmm. Well, we do have a little clip of one about Duluth's bid for the Winter Olympics, so let's watch that and then we'll talk about it.
Who hosted the 1932 Winter Olympics? Don't look it up on Wikipedia, you'll ruin the surprise. But here's a hint. It wasn't Duluth, Minnesota. Welcome to Minnesota Historia. I'm Hailey, your guide through the history of Duluth's doomed Winter Olympics. Oh, hello there. On January 10th, 1929, the Duluth Herald reported city leaders in Duluth were making a bid for the 1932 Olympics. And why not? Duluth has snow, it has ice, it has some hills, especially when compared to other cities in the state. But, and I am just playing devil's advocate here, are those hills big enough? If you average the elevations of our peaks and valleys, we're actually the 5th flattest state in the country. We're flatter than Kansas. Let that sink in for a second. Flatter than Kansas.
I don't expect you to give it all away, but tell a little bit more. Flesh this one out a little bit.
Well, so as you may have heard, Duluth tried to get the Winter Olympics back when there weren't that many sports requiring elevation. And so we'll get into that. I mean, it actually was possible that Duluth could have hosted this thing. The only thing they needed a hill for was the bobsled. But, cross-country skiing and hockey you don't need hills for unless you're doing it wrong. And so 32 was kind of the last year that Duluth could have conceivably hosted it, because then the very next year they had downhill skiing and luge start, things like that start coming. So they had a very short window of time where Duluth might have been able to host it, and that's now closed hard.
Hailey, what's it like working on this series, and how did you get interested in history?
So it's been a blast. It's like nothing I've ever done before. I got to read off a teleprompter for the first time and not just like memorize 30-second bits. I've basically been into history forever. Like my dad would watch like World War II documentaries. I was very fortunate. My parents took me to the British Museum when I was in high school, and I saw the Rosetta Stone in real life. And that's like my, this stuff is like real moment. And it just made me feel like really connected.
But there's a lot of quirkiness out there, isn't there?
Yeah. I also am a weirdo, so I like history. I like weird history, and there's a lot of it that we have to get into. We touch on a lot of it, but there's much more that we don't discuss in this series.
There's so much information available trying to capture people's attention these days. Do you think that this is a good way to maybe just spark some interest in history that people wouldn't have otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to use the word tricking. We're not really tricking people into watching these things, but we are definitely using like some quirky stories from history to pull people in, and then we're trying to give them more of a context of broader history in the region. So we do like the legend of St. Urho, which is this quirky made-up story about a patron saint of Finland. But then we use that and actually talk to people about, well, what were conditions like like for Finnish immigrants at that time, and it was kind of tough for some of them then.
Mike, this is a digital-only series. So what does that mean?
Well, so each episode is going to premiere starting Tuesday, April 26th, weekly on YouTube. So you'll get a new episode every Tuesday for the next 6 weeks. Once they've all premiered, I believe they are going to air on WDSE during a pledge drive. So if people don't have a computer, I guess you can watch it on TV eventually.
Wonderful.
Hailey, you work down at the depot
do.
and you help put together history tours down there. Is this really a different animal for you in terms of just the way you're able to approach it in a fun and fresh way, or do you try to bring a little bit of that to the depot as well?
So it's really similar. I'm doing a lot less research for this. Mike has really taken care of that. But for the depot stuff, I have fun doing it, so I try to like make it fun. I've always found that like people who don't really like history, it's because they don't like facts, they don't like numbers, they don't like dates and like memorizing things. But stories are interesting to everyone. So this is just, instead of a tour story, it's a video story.
Mm-hmm. People don't watch television like they used to, where they sit down at a set time and plan their night around the television schedule. Is it important, do you think, for stations like WDSE to really deliver content in new ways to kind of reach those new audiences where they're at today?
Yeah, I do think it's important. It's been really fun to work on this project for me because I am more accustomed to, documentary for a film festival or for TV. It is a slightly slower pace. And so this, we're really ramping up the pace and including, more images per minute. And Hailey's a little bit funnier, I think, on YouTube than she would be if we were doing it for TV.
And it looks like it's for all age groups.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yep, I think so. It's for everybody. I mean, history's for everybody.
Mm-hmm. And now, could this go beyond the initial 6 episodes? Or?
Well, yeah, I have like I said, I have a very thick file. So I mean, I am ready to go into multiple seasons of this, and I may just start doing them on my own. I mean, they're fun.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It's really a fun series, and we're excited to be part of it here.
Thank you both.
Station.
Thank you.